All right. Okay. So it's about 5:33. If you don't mind, we'll go ahead and get started. And whenever people come in, we'll just add them. So first of all, I want to say happy Friday, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this really awesome Zoom meeting and webinar. And well, who we have here is Pierre, and he is lead president of the Remoissenet winery. I know he hates the title. He specifically told me during the email that I don't like this whole title thing. Can you just say I'm Pierre from the winery? But I still felt like I love his energy. I love how humble he is. He's one of the most knowledgeable person when it comes to Burgundy. He, from what I know, he spent half of the time here in the United States taking care of the U.S. part of the business, and the other half of the time in Burgundy. And so definitely absolutely an expert. Of course, he is very familiar with all the wines that we're going to taste today. So it's such an honor to have him here and sharing all this great knowledge and information while we drink through them. So if you don't mind, Pierre, tell us a little bit about yourself and winery, and we'll jump right in, shall we?
Sure. So many years ago, I had one of those moments where I decided that it was important to follow your passion in life. Nice. So I quit my job where I was earning a good living, and I went into the wine world, and I worked for a great wine shop importer in Washington D.C. called MacArthur Beverages, Bassins. It's known as Bassins also, and one of my clients was Robert Parker, and after a few months, Bob came into the store and said, I hear you're really good. Pick out some wines that you think I should taste. And so I did. And one of the wines, he said, I've already tasted it. I didn't like it. And I said, well, I think you had a bad bottle. So he paid for all the wines, opened the wine that I thought was, he had a bad bottle. And he loved it, and we became really good friends. We started tasting together, and he asked me to work with him. And at the time, he had been all by himself for 17 years. So what does it mean to work with Robert Parker? So I figured he wanted me to carry his suitcase, and he said, no, you'll have your regions, and I'll have my regions. And so for 10 years, I covered a whole bunch of regions for the Wine Advocate, and it was just the two of us.
Wow.
And then I left because, in life you have to find yourself. You have to do the things that you're passionate about. And my dream was to make wine. And I was lucky because friends of mine who have more money than I do had recently bought a winery in Burgundy, and so it's two brothers who live in New York and a smaller investor who's in Toronto, and they asked me to come in and run the show. So I said, Remoissenet has had a great reputation until about the '79 vintage, and then the quality of the wines went down, but the place doesn't own vineyards. And in order to make great wines, we have to own vineyards. And vineyards are very expensive. And Eddie, one of the two brothers, said to me, Pierre, we can afford vineyards. Uh-huh. Okay, so off we went. And Remoissenet had 2 hectares, which is about almost 6 acres when they bought it, and we control now in the estate about 60 acres, about 28 hectares. We converted everything to, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's in the span of 15 years, is that correct? Because I thought they bought it in 2005. Okay.
Right, right. And so we converted everything to biodynamics. My obsession, for those of you who are old enough to have been subscribers to the Wine Advocate, my obsession in red is the tannin must be ripe. I believe fundamentally that a wine must give you pleasure from day one. If someone says to you, you need to age this for 10 years before you drink it, that's because they're trying to sell schlock to you. I believe that great wines are great from day one. So in order to achieve that, you have to have ripe fruit. So our fruit, harvest date is, I'm the one who launches harvest in each vineyard, and it's done by taste. I don't pay attention to, to the analyses. Why? Because I've had great wine where the natural potential alcohol was 12% alcohol, and I've had great wine where the alcohol was 16%. It doesn't matter. What matters is if the fruit is ripe. If you harvest with a lot of sugar, but your fruit is not ripe, then you have a wine that is hot, it's alcoholic. But if you harvest when the fruit at the optimal ripeness, then the wine is balanced and you're in for a great time, and you're going to make a great wine. And the bottom line is that everybody agrees on what ripe fruit is. If any one of you went to the market, you guys have a good market, I believe, in San Francisco, down by the pier or something, down by the
Yes.
Right. If you go down there and you taste an apricot, you know whether it's ripe or not, right? It doesn't take a PhD. And the same is true of wine grapes. So I walk the rows, I shove the berries in my mouth, I spit the juice out, and I chew the skins. And so that's how we pick. We have fabulous harvesters. We have a harvesting team that we've developed that I just adore, from a little village about 40 kilometers from Cordoba in the south of Spain. We rent buses down there and we bring them up. Wonderful people, and they're in the olive oil business. But they have time when we're harvesting. They have time. We sort like crazy. I use what I call the marinara school of winemaking. If you ask an Italian grandmother to make you a marinara sauce, it's where she gets her tomatoes from, right? The sourcing, the San Marzano, but where in San Marzano? So terroir is very important. She then will sort the tomatoes so that no tomatoes that aren't perfectly ripe or have blemishes or have signs of rot, etc., are taken out. She destems the tomatoes. You don't make tomato sauce from stems.
Right.
And then she gets out of the way, right? This whole notion of, how much garlic you put in, how much onion you put in, all that, that's foreign to a great marinara. A great marinara is perfect tomato, period. So that's my belief in wine. It's perfect grapes, period. And so my goal is to make wine that Angie Somme will love the day that we put it in the bottle, and when she's celebrating her 50th wedding anniversary, she can open that same bottle. So that's my goal. So when we get to the last wine in the lineup, which has been in the bottle for a little over a year, we'll see if you all agree with me that it's drinking, that it's showing what it has, right? So off we go. Right.
Are you guys still buying fruits from other people, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, tonight, going through the selection that you made, the Bourgogne Blanc is our estate vineyards, but also fruit that we purchase, right? So it's a mix of the two. Starting in 2020, so this year, we will be making two Bourgogne Blancs. One that will be a blend of estate and purchased fruit, and we will be making a pure estate Bourgogne Blanc. So, okay, so that starts this year.
Wow.
And then the next wine, the Beaune Montagne Saint Desire, that's estate. It's a vineyard that is just gorgeous. I love the place. And it's got a great name. I mean, who can't, how do you not like the mountain of Saint Desire? I mean, come on. Is there a sexier name? And then that's a state. The Bourgogne Rouge is a blend of our estate vineyards and purchased fruit. And then the Echanges, the Chambolle Musigny Premier Cru, les Echanges, that's purchased fruit. Got a funny story about that one for you that Hollis will love. The next one is purchased fruit, but we did the farming. That's the Nuits St Georges, les Damodes. And then the last one is estate.
Wow.
So Angie made the selection of the wines. And the great thing for me about it is that you get to see that even though some of these are estate and some of them are purchased fruit, I think you're going to see the quality level be the same across the board because of how we purchase fruit, how we work with the farmers through the year. In the case of the Damodes, we did the farming in 16. And the fact that they get on the sorting table the way, everything else does, because we harvested, for example, the Echanges, we harvested the Damodes, even though they're not estate. We sort them just like we do everything else. And then they're fermented just like everything else. What does that mean? It means that the berries, the destemmed berries go into wooden fermenters and, nature takes its course. There's no, we don't sit there and empty bags of tartaric acid. We don't empty bags of, none of these were chaptalized. We don't empty bags of wood tannins and all that nonsense. So what you have is a bunch of grapes.
We actually have 3 different vintages today. So we have 15, we have 16, and the rest 17. And I understand Burgundy for me is one of the hardest regions to learn because everything's so dependent upon the terroir, the winemaking, and also just the vintage. So do you mind, now that we got a little overview on kind of the philosophy of the winery, do you mind giving us a kind of a quick comparison or overview, or at least your experience between the 15, 16, and the 17 Burgundy?
So what we have here is we have 3 vintages. Now, if you take the vintage that preceded these 3 and the vintage that followed these 3, so 14 was a colder year, a year where we had to deal with hail, right? And I wish in some ways that we had a 14 here, because I'd like to show you how obsessive work can achieve great wine in what people would consider to be a difficult year. And it has nothing to, just to be honest with you, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the 2 brothers in New York, Howard and Eddie Milstein, who, when I say to them, by harvesting berry by berry, not cluster, but berry by berry because of hail, then sorting like crazy, every bottle of, for example, Beaune Premier Cru is going to cost us $100 to make, right? Yeah. And we don't sell it, we sell it for a fraction of that. They say, we're not in this business to make money. This is not how we pay for our meals, right? We're in this business to make great wine. So we have a great advantage at Remoissenet because the Milsteins allow us to do everything we can to make great wine. So that was 2014. 2015, any idiot could make good wine in 2015. The planets aligned, all the gods got in line, everything was perfect. When you wanted rain, you got rain. When you wanted sun, you got sun. It was easy. 16, I thought was 16 and 17, I thought were both easy years. 17 had the issue that in 16 we had dealt with frost, right? So yields in 16 were naturally low. So a vine, just like every living thing, we're all on this planet to reproduce, and the vine, if in a year the vine is prevented from producing as much fruit, which is reproduction, right, as it can, the following year it will be really generous. So 17 was all about controlling nature. It was all about, which, by the way, anybody who goes out there trying to control nature, it's a lot of work and good luck. So it was all about battling the vineyards that wanted to overproduce. I'm very proud to tell you that we have some of the lowest yields in all of Burgundy because we are super obsessive about it. And then 18, the vintage that isn't yet on your table. I know that North Berkeley's 18s are right now in refrigerated containers on the Atlantic Ocean, right over there on your map. The 18s were record-setting heat, big drought, and for those of you who are in California and who have experienced the heat that can occur in the Sonoma or in Napa in the summertime, you know that vines deal with heat. But the way that vines deal with heat is by drinking, right? So whether you're in the Mendoza in Argentina or the Casablanca in Chile, or you're in the Stellenbosch, whatever, vines can cope with heat if they have something to drink. But 2018 was a year of massive drought. And in France, we are not allowed to irrigate. If you grab a cup of water and throw it in the vineyard, no one's going to notice. But if you actually try to irrigate, you're going to jail. So, or your wines will be declassified to vin de France, which means nothing that says Burgundy, no vintage, nothing. So you have to pray and you have to give time. So what happened in 18 was the sugars went straight up, just like they do in California and in a hot environment. And just like they do in California, what we did was we tried to give them hang time. We waited. And ultimately, the ripeness of the fruit caught up. So the grapes that were harvested on sugar, i.e., I want to make a wine that is at 12.5% alcohol. Those guys harvested green fruit. If you harvested ripe fruit in 18, I think you could make, some of the greatest wines of your life. So there you go. So that's 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
I know everyone else is thirsty. Some of them already started. So should we get started talking a little bit about the 2017 Bourgogne Blanc?
Sure. So Bourgogne, for those of you who are new to Burgundy, the French love hierarchies. Everything is about where you stand in the hierarchy. And Bourgogne covers, I'm trying to remember the figures, it's 1%, 7%, so it's 8, 12, so that's 20, so it's 8. So Bourgogne covers 80%. The Bourgogne appellation, the regionals, as they call it in French, cover 80% of the land in Burgundy. And it gives us, it's the only wine where we can do the art of assemblage, blending, where we can say, this year is an amazing year in Chablis. Let's buy more Chablis, right? And so before harvest, you run around Chablis and you try to buy grapes from producers in Chablis. because you can see that it's going to be an amazing year there. So, for example, in 2008, I think it was, my Bourgogne Blanc was almost all Chablis. So we can do, we can assemble. So what we do is we take our estate vineyards. So we own vineyards in Bourgogne Blanc, in Savigny, in Pernon. I'm trying to think. Yep, that's it. And then we buy fruit from people, and we have contracts, long-term contracts with some growers. So we get a lot of fruit in from the commune of Puligny-Montrachet, and a bunch of fruit from the commune of Meursault. So so the 17 Bourgogne Blanc is made from that. Wow. So it is fermented and aged in 350-liter François Frère barrels for the most part. Some, a percentage new, and we try to treat our Bourgogne Blanc with the same respect and honor that we do our Grand Crus and whatnot.
So I just wanted to jump in here because I've tasted this Bourgogne Blanc a couple of times and I was really impressed by the quality. Like you said, Bourgogne Blanc could literally be sourced from anywhere within Burgundy. And I love how Pierre said it as like a matter of fact, like, it's from Meursault and Puligny-Montrachet. They're literally two of the best villages for white Burgundy, and you guys are putting the fruit from those two villages into your Bourgogne Blanc.
I'm a believer in consumers. At the Wine Advocate, that was our mantra, is that the consumer is the one who matters. And the bottom line is I might be able to fool somebody once to buy my Bourgogne Blanc. But if they don't love it, they're not going to buy it again. You have to respect consumers. So we try every year to make the best Bourgogne Blanc that can be made, and we're very proud of what we've achieved. So,
Well then, how about we then now talk about the second wine, because now we're going to a completely different. And I did this on purpose, so we have a comparison.
Yeah, so this is exciting. I'm really excited that you picked up the Beaune Montagne Saint Desire. So in French, it sounds kind of sexy, Montagne Saint Desire. In English, it would be translated as the Mountain of Saint Desire. And desire is a beautiful thing. This is the vineyard. You may have heard of a more famous vineyard, which is called the Clos des Mouches. Do you know the Beaune Clos des Mouches? Okay. So this is the parcel that sits right above the Clos des Mouches. Here you are at the very top of the hill on a very steep slope with an amazing view across the plain and over into the Jura, and over to the right you can see the Alps. Just breathtaking. And just below it is the Clos des Mouches. And you're on deep limestone here. And 2015 is a year of huge ripeness, right? Big ripeness. So the freshness that you see in this wine is purely from the fact that you're sitting in limestone, and it's such a great location. We're very proud of that wine. I hope you enjoyed it.
So how much land do you guys own in this vineyard?
Oh, we make I forgot the numbers, but we do let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 barrels, I think, of the 5 barrels of the 19. So at 288 bottles a barrel, well, let's just say 300 for the count.
Right.
So you're talking 1,500 minus 60, so 1,440 barrels, or 1,440 bottles.
Wow.
In 19. So yeah.
Cool.
So now we're going to do red wine, which is what it's all about, right?
Yes.
Robert Parker used to say that white wine was the price you had to pay to get to red wine. So now we're getting to the red wine.
All right.
So the Bourgogne Rouge, so there you have, in 2017, you have all of our estate vineyards, plus all the fruit that we bought, right? And again, so I want you to judge me and judge Jonathan, because he was on the sorting table, and judge all of us at Remoissenet on whether these wines give you pleasure. Because our duty as winemakers is to be merchants of pleasure. Our job is to give joy. So if we don't give you joy, we have failed, okay? Let's just put that on the table. So here you have all the estate vineyards. Our estate vineyards are in Pommard, they're in Savigny, they're in Pernon, they're in Gevrey-Chambertin, they're in Beaune. Plus, we buy fruit from Nuits St Georges, from Gevrey, from Beaune, from Pommard. Yep. So, and what we do is we harvest the parcels as they ripen, put them in open wooden fermenters, just like everything else, and we treat these wines with the same respect that we do the Grand Crus, right? The Premier Crus, the village wines, etc. If you show respect and if you show the same standard, even at the entry level, you can make beautiful wines. So there you go.
So the next wine that we're gonna drink, I have a special place in my heart for the village of Chambolle Musigny, and
Right.
obviously Burgundy are very different stylistically depending on the village. I personally love usually how the Chambolles comes out very elegant and more cherry driven and all that stuff. So I wanted to make sure there was a wine from Chambolle Musigny in there. And that's why I also picked a Nuits St Georges, because I felt like they're a little more on the two end of the spectrum when it comes to what you're expecting from the flavor profile. So I thought it would be fun to put side by side, although they're different vintage. So would you mind telling us a little more about the Chambolle Musigny?
So Chambolle Musigny as a village is a bit of a trap because of its beautiful name, because it has vineyards that carry name like Amoureuse, right? There's this thought that Chambolle Musigny are dancing ballerinas. They're graceful, elegant wines. If you visit Chambolle, if you walk the vineyards, you will see that from a geological standpoint, what marks Chambolle Musigny is what is called in Burgundy a combe. A combe is where the hillside collapsed. It's a break in the hill, right? So in Chambolle, it's the Combe des Orveaux. So you have super tumultuous geology there. You have vineyards that are on pure limestone. You have vineyards that are on pure clay. You have everything in between. You have a plateau that sits, so you have the combe where the hillside collapsed. You have jagged, rocky vineyards on either side of it. You then have vineyards that have kind of a nice combination of limestone and clay, and then you have this plateau that has a thick layer of clay with pure limestone below it, where famous vineyards like Chambolle Musigny les Beaubrun, Chambolle Musigny les Combottes, Chambolle Musigny les Charmes, and Chambolle Musigny les Echanges is located. Just south of that is this rocky hillside with a nice east face where you have Les Amoureuses and then you have Le Musigny. Okay, so here you are on that second hill, if you will, or you have the big hill and then you have this kind of plateau. This is where we are on the Echange. Echange in France means to swap, to exchange, right? It's where the word exchange comes from. In fact, in French, the word for swingers is échangiste, right? So what we do is we try to market this to swinger clubs. So when I was at the Wine Advocate, there was a vineyard that fascinated me. In fact, it had fascinated me since childhood because my father in 1960, I guess it was 65, my father went to Burgundy and he bought, and he tasted at a number of estates, and he bought a barrel of the Domaine Marémonge, 1964, Romanée Saint-Vivant. 64 was my birth year. And, you know, at the time you could buy a barrel for the equivalent of like $3 a bottle or $2 a bottle, right? And so he bought the barrel, they gave him the labels, and he bottled the wine himself at my grandmother's house. So I have these wines. So Romanée Saint-Vivant has been in my mind all my life. And what really strikes me about Romanée Saint-Vivant is that when it is young, it's all about the nose. And slowly but surely, the mouth catches up to the nose. Chambolle Musigny, Les Echanges is the only other vineyard I know of in Burgundy that is all about the nose from the moment you put it in the fermenter, and it goes into, if after fermentation, it goes into the barrel, and as you see it barrel age, the nose is always there, and the mouth slowly catches up. So on the 17, the nose is fabulous, and the mouth is building. And if you give it 2 or 3 years, the mouth is going to be as the nose. It's really fascinating wine to me. I really enjoy it. So I hope you do.
And how much of this particular vineyard do you guys make? How much
we made, in 17, we made 2 barrels. So that's 2 barrels is the equivalent of 48 cases.
That's it. That's tiny. Wow.
So here we go. So this is a really fun wine. For those of you who are Burgundy geeks and who somewhere deep in your soul, there's a warning bell that goes off that says, I don't like Nuits St Georges. I like Beaune Romanée. What I'd like you to know is if you're standing in this vineyard and you spit, your spit is landing in Beaune Romanée.
All right, I will share that map. I asked you.
Yeah, this is the last piece of dirt in Nuits St Georges. But I love Nuits St Georges. And there's a number of vineyards that I love in Nuits St Georges. And this to me is one of the great ones. I love the vineyard that's just below it, which is Les Boudeaux. I love Les Chéniaux, made famous by those wonderful women at Montjarre-Mignoret. I'm sorry, at Mignoret-Gibourg. So yeah, there's a number of vineyards I totally adore in Nuits St Georges. And so this one, so Damodes, this is extraordinarily steep. The vineyard owner passed the responsibility of the vineyards to his nephew a couple of years ago, and the nephew took one look at the vineyard and said, well, if I'm going to go in there, I need a tank. So he bought this single tread tank looking thing that drives right between the rows. It's an unbelievably steep, rocky vineyard whose wines I adore. And I think here, what you're going to see is while you had kind of refinement and elegance in that Echanges from Chambolle, here you're going to see power. You're going to see just intense power. Even though you see that kind of balance and restraint that you get from Beaune Romanée, which is right next door to Nuits St Georges. And this is the extreme northern edge of Les Damodes. So this is the piece of Les Damodes that touches the Beaune Romanée Les Damodes. And if you look, just out of curiosity, you can see that the borderline between Nuits St Georges and Beaune Romanée does a dog leg. You see how It's not a straight line, right where Angie has the little marker thing. It does a dog leg, right? So right where she has her marker, back in the little corner there. Now she went back up, but that's fine.
Right
that
here.
whole line is our vineyard for village Nuits St Georges.
Wow.
So our village Nuits St Georges is bordered on two sides by Remoissenet, and on one side by the Beaune, and so and up. But our Remoissenets are actually further south than our Nuits St Georges. It's fascinating the way they have that dog leg there.
Okay, so we're gonna get you the big hitter of the evening
tonight.
Oh,
my honey bunny.
Your honey bunny. So here, you have your map handy? I do. Let me share screen again.
Now we're gonna make Angie work for a living here.
Of course. So, let's see. Where's my Gerberi Chambertin map? Right here. Make it a little bigger. There.
Okay. So what's important here is there a way to? Oh yeah, we can slide it. Cool.
Yes.
So here we go. So if you look at this map and you see where it says Au Charme, right?
Mm-hmm, right here.
Au Charme is what is called the traditional Charme Chambertin. Just south of there, it says Mazoyer ou Charme in the upper part, and then Mazoyer ou Charme in the lower part. That is a Grand Cru that is called Mazoyer Chambertin. But because Mazoyer Chambertin is hard to pronounce, because it's so close to Mazy Chambertin, they were given the right to use the name Charme, which is too bad because it's a completely different Grand Cru. Night and day different. So where are we? If you look at the map, I wish I could control, but I can't. If you look at the map in the northern edge of the Charme, there you go. Now go down a little bit, go down a little bit, go down a little bit, and a little, stop. That's where we are. So why is that important? It's important because from a topographical standpoint, the Mazoyer, where that vineyard down there that can be called Charme, that is an east-facing slope. Mm. The real Charme is a mostly south-facing slope. And that's extraordinarily important for how it faces the sun. If you're at the top of that area, you're also getting the advantage of better drainage and whatnot. By the way, if you look just to the right of where Angie has her marker, naturally she just moved it. Okay, now she's in the Griot Chambertin. But if you look, there's that tiny little white finger that points up between the Charme and the Griot. That is a piece of the Gevrey Chambertin aux Ételois village wine. Mm-hmm. So there's this little village wine that sits between the Charme Chambertin and the Griot. And we own that piece.
Oh, wow.
Now, I would like to tell you that it's the best village wine in the world because it sits between these two Grand Crus. It's actually a pretty mediocre village wine because what you can't see on the map is that is a gully.
Oops.
It's a hole, right? So we own a lot of village wines throughout Gevrey, and their quality is not at all what you would imagine when you look at the map that's flat, right? I could give you examples using this map here because we have vineyards in many of these parcels. But anyway, so we'll stick to the Charme. So in that little corner right there where she had her marker, we have two tiny little parcels that are about 65 or 70 years old, I would say now, maybe 75. Fabulous berries This is that whole sector of the Chambertin that was planted by Pierre Rovani, and it's all Pinot Fin. It's all these tiny little clusters, really amazing, amazing parcels. So the way in a blind tasting, the way you can figure out whether a wine is from a Pinot Fin, right, from a Sélection Massale, is if you get, after you've swallowed or spat, if the fruit almost comes back and kisses you. You'll see that in La Fleur from Bordeaux. You'll see it in Rayas from Châteauneuf. You'll see it in what's his the Boscus from Sandrone. You know, so there are a few wines in the world where you sense the fruit that comes back and kisses you after you've swallowed it. That little burst of sweetness. And you'll see it here in the Cham. And it's not because of winemaking, it's not because of whatever. It's because over generations, the actual plants were selected to make tiny little clusters. You can hold a whole grape cluster between your fingers when they're this big, when they're that big apart. So it's a special, special victim.
But I really want to thank you all for being here, and thank you, Pierre. You have the stories and the knowledge you have and the experience is just such an honor to listen to you talk about kind of the history of the winery and the stories and how each grape and each bottle is made and the kind of the love and effort that's put into it. I hope you guys enjoyed the lineup, and this is just so awesome. I really, really appreciate your time. So,
hey, Angie,
yes.
I wish you all the best in wine and life. To you, my dear.
Yes.